Yes, you can do anything. The sky's the limit.
As I ploughed my way through Biomutant's mass of oddly saccharine content, I couldn't help but equate Experiment 101's sprawling RPG with a big colourful piñata. With every firm but light-hearted smack across its papier-mâché arse, it spewed out more little treats and tidbits and brightly coloured flashy things, and the more it spewed, the more I hit it, and the more I hit it, the more queasy I became, and yet I found I couldn't stop until I'd beaten it into a shredded pulp and gorged myself on its offerings until the room was spinning. My point here is that there's a lot of stuff to do in Biomutant, like a massive amount, but as my dear old nan used to crow into my ignorant ears, too much of a good thing will eventually kill you, or hurt you, or something like that. I don't know, I wasn't really listening. I hasten to add one thing though, and that is that I cannot knock the ambition behind Biomutant. Evidently, at some point, Experiment 101 held a brainstorming session during which someone switched all the waters with high sugar energy drinks and hid the board rubbers. From the outset, you're populating your map with flashing icons and you'll still be finding new stuff after 20 hours. But if Biomutant is living proof of anything, it's that there really is such a thing as too much of a muchness. From the moment you open up the character creation screen, it begins hurling silly words and nonsensical terms at you, and it rarely stops. Your first task is to create a custom rodent-like hero from a bunch of presets, which you can then fine-tune with sliders. My little white and blue rat rabbit only took a few minutes to create, as I was happy to sling all my initial points into vitality and agility and select the saboteur class, because dual-wielding makeshift guns and blades sounded cool. The classes on offer represent the usual RPG fare, such as the Commando, who does more damage with rifles, and the Psy-Freak, who can wield Biomutant's form of magic like a wizard. Thing is, it doesn't matter all that much, because it doesn't take long to realise that one thing Experiment 101 weren't interested in creating was a challenge. Much noise has been made about Biomutant's combat being loosely based on the frenetic bloodletting in DMC, and I can certainly see the similarities here, in the same way I can see the similarities between the driving in Forza and the driving in Crash Team Racing, because while Biomutant's combat definitely looks good in trailers, in practice it's a little bit less impressive. It's nice to be cartwheeling around bad guys and seamlessly mixing melee and ranged combat, but it's nicer when you can feel the impact of each blow, and sadly, Biomutant just doesn't deliver punchy, exciting combat. Yes, you can flip about the place and employ a form of magic, and yes, there's more slow-mo action than Zack Snyder filming a fight between two OAPs and a vat of treacle, but there's rarely anything to force you to use your entire arsenal. The free class system allows you to pump points into whichever stats you'd like, and so by around 10 hours in I ditched the dual blades for a whacking greatsword that poisoned my enemies and a rifle that I haven't had to swap out for the 25 hours since equipping it. There's an argument here that things are only as fun as you make them, and I suppose you could throw caution to the wind and wade in with your dukes up, but there's absolutely no penalty for just circle strafing every single enemy while shooting them until they catapult off in slow motion. You'll rarely take a solid hit, let alone die. A lack of weight to the melee combat leaves the experience looking pretty but feeling hollow, and despite trying to engage with it in a meaningful way on multiple occasions, I struggle to see any encounter as more than an obstacle between me and Biomutant's beautiful, loot-filled world. Rarely outside of a Ubisoft sandbox have I seen a map so densely packed with places to explore and secrets to uncover. You can't run for more than 30 seconds in any direction without coming upon another abandoned intersection, dilapidated house, underground bunker or secret vault. A little checklist accompanies each new area, helpfully marking off anything you find until you're told the area is complete and there's nothing left to search for. A chirpy little automaton is an ever-present companion, ready to fight beside you, sort of, and narrate everything in the voice of a kindly uncle. At least, I think it's the automaton who's supposed to be talking. In fact, there's a lot of Biomutant I still don't fully understand. Set in a world that has survived an environmental apocalypse courtesy of the THQNordic Corporation, whose disregard for the planet's health led to the end of civilization, Biomutant presents a fairly dark story that often feels at odds with its attempt at humour and levity. The narrator, for example, rarely shuts up and even translates the grunts and whistles of the NPCs you'll meet, while character and enemy names run the gamut from harmlessly weird, downright unpronounceable, which in turn makes them thoroughly forgettable. Not a good thing in a game that gives you so much to think about. Its world is split into separate biomes, each controlled by one of 6 warring tribes. Initially, you'll be asked to choose one of 2 sides to work with and will wage war upon the others. You can choose to be ruthless or merciful, which will affect your aura, mirror and decide whether you, and by extension the world, leans towards light or dark. This affects various things such as which NPCs will give you side quests, which monsters you'll encounter frequently, and which characters will accept a seat on the Ark, a spaceship ready to carry you away from the world if your attempts to save it fall to ruin. The similarities between Biomutant and Breath of the Wild are evident almost immediately. You have a glider, for instance, and must find specific hazard protection suits to survive hostile areas, but an even greater similarity is the structure of the campaign, which sees you tackling 4 huge bosses in different corners of the map in order to remove the corruption from the world. This and the tribal war are the main driving factors behind Biomutant's slightly disjointed story, and lead you to repairing and manning various vehicles such as a mech and a submarine to do battle with the World Eaters. Even these campaign elements are too easily overcome, however, boiling down to fetch quests, short fights. Only one gave me any trouble, and that was more down to iffy design than real difficulty, and sometimes you can merely suggest that the leader of a rival outpost not fight you, and they won't. This works far too often and far too easily. I had more fun exploring the world and playing with the loot than I did tackling the story. The crafting in Biomutant is pretty cool. While you can collect armour, and my god, there is so much of it, to equip on each part of your body, including a backpack and a face mask to wear as well as your helmet or hat, you won't find half as many weapons. Instead, you'll find parts everywhere that you can use on the fly to make new gear from scratch. It's an excellent system, but while there are outfit slots for quick change in your armour and clothing, it would have been handy to have a similar system to switch weapon compositions on the move, especially as you spend so much time in the saddle of something or other as you explore. From gorgeous, colourful meadows to scorching deserts, from frozen wastelands to dense jungles, Biomutant's world is vibrant, bustling and full to bursting. Settlements dotted here and there present new side quests, vendors and upgrade stations for your gear, while hidden caverns go deep underground and high pressure to loot for your furry little fingers. An impressive draw distance, on PC at least, grants you glimpses of far-off treasure troves that you'll glide, ride, fly or swim to, and a huge variety of weird and wonderful monsters lurk in the shadows. Oh, and it's not often a game lets you ride a huge mechanical hand as a mount, complete with a powerful finger cannon, so there's that. It's quite easy to get around the world using fast travel points, which you pee on to activate, because why not? Although I will say that spacing can be a little odd, given that some are so close you can see one from the other, and some are so far apart you're desperate to find one by the time you do. But you will zip around the map an awful lot, mostly on mundane fetch quests or to tick things off the long side quest checklist. Most old world gadgets you find, such as telephones, TVs and computers, will require you to solve a fairly rudimentary puzzle. There's a few different types, but they're all super simple to overcome. Ancient gym equipment, on the other hand, will improve your physical attributes after a brief bout of button mashing. Biomutant really doesn't do anything wrong exactly, and it accomplishes most of what it sets out to. As an open world RPG, it may be a little bit too easy for genre veterans, especially on the standard difficulty, and as a looter, it certainly showers you with a ton of the stuff in a huge array of rarities, but it does struggle in the two areas that arguably matter most: combat and story. The world itself is great to explore, peppered with things to find and people to meet, but there's almost too much of it at times. It's also worth noting that even though I played on PC, Biomutant hasn't been fully optimised for next gen yet, and the load times between areas or deaths are pretty long. I also encountered noticeable slowdown after loading into a new area and occasional drops in frame rate. Usually these issues cleared up fairly quickly, but they're worth a mention. If you're going to be guilty of anything, then I suppose too much ambition is hardly a negative. Experiment 101 have crafted a genuinely enjoyable adventure that suffers primarily from being too stuffed to the gills and a little bit tonally pendulous. The combat isn't bad, but it misses the mark where it counts, and the laboured none too original story is balanced out by the inventive world. Whether Biomutant clicks with you or not, the simple truth is that although you may well feel a pang of the familiar now and then, you've almost certainly never played anything quite like it. And for that reason, I'm going to score it a 7 out of 10. Hi there, Mick here. Hope you enjoyed that review of Biomutant from Experiment 101 and THQNordic. It's coming to PS4, Xbox One and PC, no mention of next gen yet though. Is this one on your radar? Will you be picking it up and giving it a go? Let us know, and come back to let us know what you think of it too, as we love to hear from you guys. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button and that subscribe button and the bell button too while you're at it, why not? And be sure to check back for more coverage of the latest games like Biomutant. In the meantime, I've been Mick Fraser for God is a Geek, and you guys I've been lovely. Bye.